Welcome to the Kayak Bass Connection studio. We are here tonight to talk about the future. We're going to talk about the future of the Southern Illinois Kayak Club Tournament Bass Trail. So I'm your host, Jared, and we're going to look forward to the spring of 2026. And I've got two guys with me tonight who's going to tell us a lot about the different plans and some leadership changes, some rule changes, some just organization changes that everybody that fishes the tournament trail is going to want to know about. So I want to welcome back two folks that have been on the podcast several times. Josh Lincoln, a longtime tournament director. And if you've ever fished a SIKC tournament, you've met Josh, and you've probably met Jonathan as well. Jonathan has been on the leadership team with the tournament trail, and also has always been cashing some big checks. So if you see any of the end of tournament checks, the big ones have had his name on it a lot of times. I know he's taken a lot of my money. So it's good to have both of you guys on tonight. Thanks for joining
More
me.
recently, like just outside of that check range.
Just you could see it from where you're at.
Always happy to be here.
Hey guys, I'm always good to just see two friends. It's awesome to have both of you here, and I'm really excited. I've got kind of a brief idea of what we're going to talk about tonight. I'm excited. There's some pretty neat stuff that's going to be going on. And first of all, let's talk about the handoff, the change in leadership. That this is going to be happening anytime now, right?
Yeah, it's going to be happening anytime. Essentially, I just had a baby, and life has gotten a lot more difficult in a good way, in a blessing way.
Yes, what a blessed way. Yes.
What a lot of people don't see that participate in SIKC is the countless hours that I do behind the scenes. I mean, I would probably say last season alone, I probably spent well over 300 plus hours just behind the scenes of getting tournaments ready and replying to emails and phone calls and people signing up late for tournaments and going to the store and buying prizes. It adds up a whole lot. Right now, I just kind of want to focus on my family, and I still want to be a part of SIKC, and that's kind of why I got a board together so we can do a handoff, but not have me be the person that runs every single aspect of the club, if that makes sense.
That makes a ton of sense. Just from an angler perspective, I can only imagine the time that goes in behind the scenes that nobody sees. So it's a small thank you, but from everybody in the club. So thank you so much for everything you've done. You've created an incredible culture, an incredible tournament trail, grassroots tournament trail. And I hope that every time somebody sees you, they thank you for that.
Yeah. A lot of people don't even realize all the work that goes into it. I talk to all the people because everybody wants to talk to me the couple days before the tournament because they're excited and they're like, oh yeah, I'm rigging this up and I got this bait. And it's like most of the time when I show up to the tournament, I'm showing up with the same exact baits that were tied on at the last tournament. Like I don't do any prep myself. It is all prep for the tournament,
Well, maybe that's going to be one of the advantages that you'll be able to fish a little.
Yeah, as somebody that's like watched for the last couple of years and watched Josh do this and see the just like countless times when we're going out and we want to compete and we have all this time and energy invested rigging up for fishing and planning, pre-fishing. And, I've seen Josh there's been tournament days where I think he sacrificed like 80 to 90% of his fishing time so that he can get photos of the guys and so that he can come back early to start with the judging and to run the tournament, launch late to make sure that everybody gets off and onto the water safely. And it's countless time and energy for the guys to be able to focus on fishing and having fun. It's just tons of work that we've watched, Josh put into this. And so, on behalf of the entire club and for the anglers that sit there and compete every month during the summer and spring and fall, and have had that fun, it's just a huge thank you for the sacrifice that you've put into this club. 2025 really highlights, I think, all the energy and effort that you put in. We saw great turnout, steady growth, and I can't just say 2025, but I mean, you go back. So when I started back in 2021, I think was my first season, maybe 2020, and you see like just the steady growth, great turnout, and then just guys sticking around, and not to mention the culture in the league, which has really been set, I think, by you in the way that you run each of the tournaments that you've ran over the last several years.
Yeah, and it's funny how it all came together. I mean, when I first started taking over the club in May of 2020, or I guess January of 2020, I think we were averaging like maybe 11, 12 people showing up to a tournament, and I think last season we averaged somewhere around the 40 mark, which is incredible. But yeah, I agree. It's 100% the culture and everybody that comes to our event. I think most people have the most fun after the tournament, just kind of having that team camaraderie and just chit chatting and talking. And I can't tell you how many times I've been at the tournament. Tournament may have ended at 3, but I'm sitting there until 5, 6 o'clock in the evening, just chit chatting and having fun with folks at the ramp. And I think that goes a long way.
So one of the things that you've done really well, and I think when you were kind of talking about having to balance all the stuff that can kind of get lost, but you putting those hours in to sit and stop and talk with people for hours after tournaments and before tournaments really comes down to how transparently everything is done, right? There aren't a lot of, we're not hiding anything. There's no last minute decisions or changes to any rules. It's just kind of professionalism and transparency. And those are some of the like key foundations. And so part of that I think we should do is just talk a little bit about how, we put together the leadership team, kind of who's on the board, and kind of, keep going here, going into 2026, just keeping with that idea of professionalism and transparency in everything that we're doing. So
100%.
Yeah, so let's just go through what you're doing with the board positions now. So Josh is obviously is he stepping down or stepping into a different role, maybe as more of an angler and less a tournament director, which this is
Josh,
awesome for him and his family.
Josh stepped up. He said, "Hey, I need a lot of help." I still think Josh is unsure about how much time and commitment he can devote. And I kind of said early on, Josh got together kind of a board. At first, it was I think these were mostly volunteers.
Yeah. So earlier in this season, I sent out on our Facebook members only page, I sent out like an application to be on the board, and these were the people that responded and wanted to step up. So that's kind of how the core got formed, at least.
Yeah, which was basically, it was me, Josh, of course, and Susie, Dustin Siegel, and Lee Van Hoos. So the group of us sort of got together. I think we talked about where people's had the free time commitments. And I'm really fortunate in the sense that I've continued to do my, the duties and the stuff with my daughter, but I'm also really fortunate she's gotten a little older now. And so that really frees up a lot of time for me. And so we talked about, I have a lot of time and energy to commit. I also think some of the other really cool things that are going on in the state of Illinois with competitive kayak fishing gives an opportunity that I can still have my fun and compete while dedicating time and energy, kind of maybe that might take away from the competitive nature in SIK, and devote that to a lot of the responsibilities that Josh has been doing as the tournament director for all the events in the past. And so the 5 of us sort of got together and had a little election or committee vote. And we kind of assigned some roles. And so I'm going to kind of take over, I think, the chief director position. Josh is going to still be there as this transitions. He's going to be our vice president.
Okay.
Susie is going to be the treasurer. Dustin stepped up. He has experience helping Josh and I in the past. We've kind of gotten together as a committee and done some of the scheduling responsibilities when it comes to getting the lakes reserved. So Dustin Siegel stepped up as sort of our scheduling director. He, of course, is there at every tournament, even if he's not competing, operating as a judge, even if it's remote. Lee was sort of an obvious fit. He's going to be our chief of judges. And I think we're going to have him reach out to some guys with experience judging to talk about some of, more details about the judging and rule changes and kind of get a group together to help with the virtual side of judging. And then after several discussions, we got together and said, we think maybe there could be a couple more voices that should be on the board. That's main goal is to sort of represent the membership and give us some sort of diversity of ideas on how rule changes should be implemented, on how the tournament schedule looks like and lakes that we fish. So we had like a round of nominations with the board, and elected Brady Barlow and Austin Weedhooner to join as at-large members on the executive board. And
great
one of the
choices there.
things that having this formal board does for us is it kind of opens up some opportunities to help us with sustainability. Having a strong, involved group of leaders really in putting this board in place, that we, along with this, we put in sort of a group of kind of bylaws for the organization on how it should function and operate. And these bylaws will kind of help the league continue to sustain and grow, I think, going forward. It was, I think the response, Josh can attest to this, but when he started as the director back in, was it 2019?
It
2020?
was the season between 2019 and 2020. So 2020
2019 and 2020?
Yeah, right as I took over the club, we ran right into COVID. So that was my first obstacle to jump over.
Yep. And the amount of work that's had to go into organizing the events from then until now has grown tremendously. And so making sure that there's sort of a group with dedicated responsibilities and sort of a procedural way to keep transparency as the league continues to grow and evolve, I think is really important. And a group to take the responsibility, like a group of people to sort of take that responsibility for those decisions, is going to be really helpful too. So we put together a series of bylaws to kind of help govern how the board functions and how decisions are made. And along with that, we have been working sort of remotely over the last couple months, last month maybe, to just get a series of rules put together, sort of a new guidelines and rules, establish some new policies, and hopefully some great new events coming up in 2026.
I mean, that's a lot of work.
Yeah, I will say everybody in my whole tenure as director, we always followed those KBF standards. And I'm not sure if y'all all knew this throughout the year last year, but KBF no longer sponsored our insurance last year, which has been something they've been doing for years and years and years since we've been running the club. So we've always had to follow their rules, but now that they've dropped their coverage and we're paying for our own insurance out of membership fees and stuff like that, we have an open opportunity to kind of fine tune some rules that are more fine tuned for a grassroots club versus like a national trail series. So everything we talked about in the board, I think they're all great decisions and they're only going to help the club succeed.
You're just seeing the organization continue to mature, right? So,
yeah.
And as you said, with the growth that you've seen last year, it's a good timing to start doing some of these additional organizational steps, like the bylaws. That's a big deal, I think. So, this guys, and there's a lot to unpack there. So, one thing I noticed, so you have a lot of information you're going to be pushing out. We're going to talk about a lot of it receiving it, but you're going to have a new central place where members can find this, right? You got a new website. Let's touch on that real quick.
Yeah, important to note, the old website is still active. Eventually, I think the domain sikfishing.com, which is what we've historically used for the website, all that's still there because there's just a lot of great information that Josh has added on there and put together. All that information is archived, and we're going to eventually forward that to the new website, which is sikfishing.com. So only change in the URL is just change the .com to .org. That's The new site is up and running. It has a lot of information on there. We're going to run memberships through that system. If we're lucky, that might save us a little bit of fees. I'm not really sure how the fees stack up between PayPal and there. And that also kind of gave us the ability, running that through the website, there's going to be a members only section on the new website that once memberships open, like normal, they're going to open up around the first of the year, and members can start signing up. That will unlock that kind of membership portion, which will contain a lot of really cool historical information, past AOI lists, tournament outcomes, summaries. But we're still, I think, working through some of all the kind of cool benefits. One thing that I think Josh has always gotten asked a lot in the group chat is like to kind of remind everybody what the coupon codes are for our sponsors.
Constantly getting that.
So like you'll be able to log in there and access those sponsorship discount codes. And so it's just sort of a centralized location for people to get all the benefits. And we're even thinking through what are some new benefits that we can provide to people on there. And so, for example, you'll be able to link directly to the Bass Connections, Kayak Bass Connections podcast.
No, yeah,
and
awesome.
see some of our SIK specific links directly from there as well. So there'd be some really cool things in there. And so encouraging everybody to go check that out at sikfishing.org. Eventually sikfishing.com will go there as well.
Okay. So while you're talking about, next year, as far as, just to be clear with everyone, you guys we do not have a schedule for 2026 yet, correct? Still got permits?
No, I believe the government shut down. I will say this, we have permits for lakes all submitted for all of our tentative events. I think some of the lakes that might receive some federal dollars are kind of slow acting due to the government shutdown, from my understanding. And so we're still waiting on a few dates to get finalized and permits to get approved before we officially announce the schedule.
Right. Yeah. Awesome.
And then the Cedar tournament, we can never apply until after the first of the year. That one always, at least when I was a director, when I would post the schedule in December, I'd always put like an asterisk next to that one. Like, this is where we hope it's going to be, but it may change, just because you have to wait for that permit.
Yeah. I will say that we have about, I think, 4 of our tournaments approved, and Cedar, of course, is going to be that one that we have to asterisk. And then there's still one, maybe another one that we're looking to finalize. We do have a couple options for the Classic. I'm not going to make any announcements. I think the board's going to get together and do a vote on the options that we do have available on the Classic, which brings up another change that we're actually going to implement for the 2025 Classic. And that is we're going to attempt, I say attempt because we know how weather in Illinois can be in March. We're going to attempt our first 2-day Classic, and for the March 2026 Classic, which of course was for the 2025 season. And we're also spitballing the idea of moving the Classic back to fall. So the 2026 Classic might be somewhere around October 2026. And we're going to try to continue that tradition of doing like a 2-day Classic after this coming year. So that's one of the new big challenges and new things that we're going to try out for 2026 is to do a 2-day event. I think it'll be the first 2-day event in SIK history.
It will be.
Wow.
Yep.
Yeah. And, again, with the weather, the way that is shaped up with the rules is if we have really poor weather one of those days, we may end up canceling one day of the event and making it a 1-day event. So asterisk that, but we're going to also try to attempt to get that located somewhere where it's where we can find some kind of affordable housing for people that maybe aren't used to kind of staying overnight for tournaments. So those are some of the logistical things that we're working through right now to get that scheduled.
Yeah.
All right.
And it's a fun deal. And for a lot of our anglers who probably never fished a 2-day tournament or had to go travel like nationally to fish a 2-day tournament, and it's a completely different ball game because you have to show up and you have to be consistent 2 days in a row, which is not easy to do. So for our anglers that have competed in Crossroads before or traveled and done national tournaments that were 2 days, it's a great fun event. And we really just wanted to share that experience with everybody that qualified for our championship event.
Yeah. And I want to remind everybody that this went out with the 2025 packet, but the Classic's the top 20 by AOI. And then anybody that has made, I think, 4 or more regular season events, even if they're not in the top 20. And that's a tradition that I think we're going to try to continue because we want to just reward people that are continuing to participate on a regular basis in our events.
Hey, I like that because I'm usually fall in that category. So I appreciate that. That's good.
Yeah, it's 100%. It goes back to investing in the people that invest with us,
Yeah. So
we're going to make, sorry.
So, Jonathan, you were talking about we kind of cleared that we don't have a schedule yet, talking about the different formats. Can we kind of look at some of the rules? We hit on the rules that we're going to be looking at doing our own rules, and you've already come up with several different changes here. Can we just go over a few of those, just kind of highlight some of the things?
Josh might help me with this because he's more familiar with the original KBF rules. What we sat down, and I think we started with the base of KBL's rules.
Yep.
The other Illinois league, and basically the board really sat down and kind of broke it apart and said, well, this is what we want to see. We took a lot of feedback from our at-large members on what we think, what we believe the members want to see. And I'll try to hit upon like some of the major changes. The big one, and we spent a lot of time on this, is the tail pinching that's come up every single year. KBF had a no tail pinch rule. A lot of people said, hey, I can get a photo of a fish and get it back in the water faster if I can tail pinch. And so we think that's really helpful for conservation and helping ensure the survivability of the fish that we catch. And we listened to that. There were concerns expressed a little bit about, ways that people use that to cheat. So we have that worded so you can pinch the tail, but we want to make sure that you can see the entire tail when you pinch it. And
that's that was just my next question.
One of those things. We don't want to see anybody, of course, having clipped tails or anything like that. I don't want to give anybody any ideas, but we just saw this last couple weeks. We heard some unfortunate news about, big national news about cheaters in kayak fishing. I don't think that's ever been a major problem in SIK, but as SIK grows, we want to make sure that there's a fair and level playing field and an enforceable set of rules that we have out there, and it's easy for our judges to be able to enforce them.
Sure.
Another big change, and I don't know if there's a big change because I don't think it really impacts anybody, is with the motors. The motor stipulations are less than 4 horsepower by manufacturer spec. The motor can't be modified, it has to be electric, and it's 4 horsepower or 120 foot-pounds of torque equivalent. So that is
one motor per kayak, right?
And one motor per kayak, which was a thing that we debated because of some of us believe that, having, especially as kayaks kind of convert into being non-pedal drive and really paddleable, is the safety concern of having just one motor and then having technical difficulties. So we touched upon the idea of allowing 2 motors, but it's just one of those things that I don't think kayak fishing has kind of gotten there yet and is still figuring out how to deal with that. So we're still 1 motor during tournaments. You can pre-fish with 2 motors, but once you get in there on tournament day, 1 motor only. Another, I think, change that we heard feedback from the members, and this was a difference between KBF and Bass. We aligned a little bit closer with Bass, and I think maybe even took it a little further. Bass allows what's called long lining, and I don't know how many people out there know what long lining is necessarily, but it's essentially if you, like for deep crankbaits, if you want to get them deep, you can cast out and then sort of use your propulsion to move away from your lure to give you a longer cast. This is something that's allowed in bass rules, and so we opened that up as well. In KBF, it was not allowed in SIK prior to this year.
Yeah.
And so we're going to allow long lining. We also said if the state allows trolling, we're going to allow trolling. So another big change is you're going to be allowed to troll and long line. And I don't think there's any major restrictions as long as you're following sort of the base state laws related to those things.
Yeah. I noticed that was another one where we listened to our at-large members and just kind of the voice of the club. And we heard a lot of feedback from those paddle anglers on those windy days where they're like, man, it's all I can do is to troll. That's all I can do on these windy days. So we want to make sure that no matter the conditions, everybody has a shot at it at least.
I noticed in your notes that you sent me, it says trolling is now permitted with 1 rod under direct angler control. Does that mean in your hand or does that mean in a rod holder?
I think it means in your hand would be my interpretation of that.
Okay.
The idea of that, again, is the rules still exist that you can only ever fish with 1 line at one given time, and that you have to bring that line in from the water before you can cast again. And so I think that comes out. Everybody's been at that point when they're like, they cast in, there's a blow up like on a tree and they get hung up and you like want to just cast right back in there. But you can't with something else, you can't do that. You still got to clear your line and get it into your boat before you can make another cast. And sense. I think part of that is that you should be holding your rod. So in your control would mean you got it in your hand or on your person in some way.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Photo integrity was another one with the rise of a few cheaters using artificial intelligence to manipulate photos.
Yeah, it's just straight against the rules. And I don't know if this was explicitly, it's one of those things that, like, we all knew this was against the rules. We know that would be a form of cheating, an obvious form of cheating, but the rules necessarily didn't explicitly say that. So we have an explicit rule, in addition to not adjusting timestamps, making sure that you upload raw photos with the natural timestamp and all that stuff. They also cannot be modified in any way using artificial intelligence, AI, or any of that kind of stuff.
Okay. And one I wanted to ask about was I see that now we're going to have a practice period. You have to be off the water by 5 p.m. before the event. Explain to me the reason behind that one.
I think we've always, usually in the tourney acts, we typically have an off the water by 5 o'clock historically, or at least the last couple of years, right, Josh? Oh,
No,
we've had
I
no.
always kept it wide open because I figured there was a lot of anglers that worked Monday through Friday, and if they could get out to the lake Friday afternoon and make a couple casts in the evening and just get a confidence bite, that was fine by me. It didn't really matter.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and I want to be.
that perfectly described me. So
Yeah,
I'm curious as to, is there something
the
competitive?
reason this is highlighted and the reason there was some wording changes in the rules really focuses on, and this kind of comes back to what we saw in the media for cheating over the last couple of weeks, it is highlighting a specific point regarding, can you go pre-fish from a boat before a tournament? We know that there are a lot of guys out there that both fish from a boat and fish from a kayak. And we didn't previously have any practice period defined whatsoever in the rules. So by defining the practice period, it doesn't have I don't think there's any off limits period like there is with other rules. Like in bass, you have an off limits period predated by a practice period. For us, the practice period is going to be, you can only fish from a kayak during that practice period. So you can fish from a boat before the practice period. There's no off limits period, but within, I think, and I will be honest, I don't have this in front of me. I don't think, is it here?
I thought it was.
I can't remember. I think it's a week before
That you can only fish
from your kayak, and then
Okay.
just off the water by 5 before. And that's just a lot of leagues. And again, we base this off KBL. They actually were off the water by 4 in their rules. I added an extra hour since we traditionally don't have, we haven't had that off the water period. I just think it's good practice so guys aren't out there too late, and that you do set some bounds on, you fish till 4 in the morning right before the tournament and stuff like that. So we are gonna have an off the water period at 5 p.m. on Fridays before our Saturday tournaments. Most people are, in most leagues that's pretty common. But the real purpose of the practice period and defining it was just defining that framework that during this period, the week before the tournament, you shouldn't be out there in boats and using a big advantage with large motors and larger vessels to pre-fish for the tournament.
Cover a big amount of water too.
Yeah.
With big
Yeah.
motors.
For example, on my kayak, my graph can pop off my kayak and go right onto my bass boat. So if I went out there a couple days before a lake I've never been to, and I could just cruise around just marking brush piles on side imaging and just create a bunch of waypoints in a short amount of time. That's not a fair aspect,
Okay. The other thing I noticed was measuring boards. There's been a bit of a change there in what you can use to measure with.
This is a big one, and we actually put a lot of energy into this one. It came from KBL. It's also a movement that I've seen in other leagues regarding judging, and that is basically that the boards that are painted black, specifically the black catch boards, because of that dark contrast, when you put a fish tail over it, it makes it almost impossible to see where the tail ends. And for people who bring that tail right up to the line, since that's counted as meeting that line, it really does make that determination for a judge really hard. So we banned specifically the black catch boards. And when I say that we put effort into this, we went through all of the submissions from anglers over the last years to see who this affected, and it only affects, I think, one angler that fished tournaments the last year, and we're going to help make sure that angler actually has a non-black catch board from the league, just so that they're not out of pocket for that rule change.
It looks like you're opening it up to more manufacturers too, right?
So and we're also going to open this up to the Bubba boat board and the Yak Attack boards.
Which I haven't seen the Bubba. Really popular lately, and that was the biggest question I had going into last year's season was, can we get the Yak Attack? Can we get the Yak Attack? And we were just sticking to that standard that we had been previous, but that is a new big rule change.
Yep. Are we missing anything with the rule changes, or did we get most of it?
I think we've covered most of the notes that I had.
We didn't define, and this is kind of a rule change and not in the same point. We're changing the AOI point system a little bit. Now, it's still going to operate the same way, but instead of the winner getting 50 points and 49 and 48, we're bumping that up to 60 just based on growth. Because there was a couple tournaments at the last year where like somebody had like gone to the tournament and didn't catch, and they got the -10 from the lowest, and it was like 0 or 1 or 2 points. So it's just to kind of bump that standard up. So hopefully 10 points is like the minimum of like, hey, I went to an event, everybody else caught fish, but I didn't, 10 should
And
be like
if you show up, I think you still get a minimum 20 points maybe with the 60. But the idea is if you sign up and you don't go and you get that 0, it kind of disincentivizes that because it puts you a little further behind.
Mm-hmm.
So it incentivizes showing up and competing. It offers a little bit more emphasis on where you finish whenever the end of the season is done with AOI. That was a big one. And I'll tell you, when we get to our next big announcement, I'll talk a little bit more about those AOI points and that structure.
Okay. Yeah. Real quick one we didn't hit on was, I think this might be changed under safety. Inflatable belt PFDs no longer allowed. I've never seen one of those. Is that truly a belt you're talking about and not?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I've never seen one.
Yeah, it's like an inflatable life jacket, how people like wear them here, but it's just like a belt. They're very popular in like the paddle board aspect of the world,
Okay. Also, 360 lights required, and then the unsafe actions may lead to banishment from the trail.
Yeah.
Can't argue with any of that.
The rules give us a little bit more freedom to be able to control what the punishments are for some of the rule breaking. And I just want to lay this out there. Maybe that sounds harsh in some cases for like the rules with the disqualifications and this and that. It comes off as harsh, but the reality is we know our SIK members, 99% experience, 99% experience tells us we're good when it comes to rule following. For those that have the rule is 360 lights on before sunset. If you don't have your 360 light, it's not on, or sunrise, you cannot launch until sunrise. And that's a state law. So
yeah.
We wanted to make sure that rule was in line with state laws, because some of the rules I've read out there from other organizations said like 10 minutes before sunrise, but Illinois law says you need to have that 360 light on if you're out before sunrise.
Yeah.
We want you to have that on. I know that people always get there the day of and they're like, crud, my batteries are dead because I left my light on, and we know that they burn through batteries. My goal is when I'm tournament directing, I'm going to have a battery daddy stacked with double A's in the truck. So I will buy them in bulk and they will be freely available to you. If you run out of batteries, just find me when you're, check your 360 light before you come get your wristband. And if you need some double A's, I'm hopefully going to have enough to just distribute to make sure that everybody's safe and that we don't have to hold you up at the launch before you go out.
Yeah, that's a very simple thing we can all do to be just a little bit safer, a lot safer, because we're sharing the water with some pretty fast boats sometimes. The last thing I wanted to hit on that I see on my list here is the sportsmanship clause in the new rule book. I like the language I see here. Can you explain to me the thought process of adding that, since we don't really have a big problem with that in the club?
We don't have a problem with that. And this is something that came out of KBL's rules. We loved it and adopted it. It was just, hey, we want to be good sports, and then that should be a priority. And this is true. I've read this same kind of statement in the bass rules.
Yes.
And the key thing is, we don't block competitors. We don't yell and fight for spots. And we just want to keep that. So there is a general sportsmanship clause, and we want to be representative of SIK when we're on the water. We are representatives of SIK when we're on the water, whether we're talking about when we're competing with other SIK members or whether we're sharing the water with boats. We want people to say, when they get off the water in their boat and they want to go, there's a lot of kayaks out there today, instead of being, gosh, some expletives, these kayaks, we want to talk like, man, they were out there and they were in the way, but they were very respectful. They, they were courteous when we were fishing around them, and, we were able to share a spot. It was a pleasure being able to fish next to them, kind of thing.
Yeah. And
so there's a sportsmanship clause in there, and we want it to be there to remind everybody that when you're on the water, you're a representative of SIK, and you should take responsibility for how you act when you're on.
Yeah, that's a good move. I think you're just right. It's a reminder that hasn't been a problem. Let's not allow it to get there.
Yeah. And it's It's based on how we started this conversation. It's based on the culture that we built in SIKC. So it never has been a problem, and I don't foresee it ever being a problem. We just wanted to put it in writing and put it on the books, you know.
And it's important to remember that as we grow, we keep getting more and more anglers, and there's the likely we don't expect it to be a problem, but the likelihood of having something come up increases the more you grow, and so we wanted it to be in there preemptively. Now, anything else on the rules?
That's all I can think of from notes I have.
I think those are some of the big things with the rules. There is one more big announcement for 2026, and that is that we are going to have another series. We are going to have the first ever team trail series, and this is going to be ran in the fall. Some of you saw that I kind of posted the idea back in the Facebook page a couple months ago, and a lot of people loved the idea. For those of you that have been involved in team events, it's a lot of fun. Incorporates a lot of the culture that we have in SIK, which is we communicate, we collaborate, we talk, we share techniques, we share how we do techniques, and being part of a team event really, I think, expands on that idea. And while there have been some national teams series that have been ran around in through the region, the organization for those is I think suffering, and we saw it kind of fall apart a little bit. There was a mention of another team series running in Illinois, which I think fell through. So I think there's an opportunity, and I think it really fits with the culture of SIK. And so in the fall of 2026, this is after our last tournament, we are going to start the first fall team trail. It's going to be a short trail. It's just 4 events. We're going to try to sneak it in there between starting in September and ending in early November. And we have some traditional lakes that we fish in the regular series, but we're also going to try to throw in some new lakes. The format, to try to highlight that really quickly, is going to be 3-member teams. Each team is allowed 1 alternative to assign. So if a team member can't make it to an event, you can have a sub, sort of. And the event's going to be scored on the top 10 fish that the team puts together. And I think no more than 5 fish from a teammate. So you have 3 teammates that compete. That's a total of 15 fish, but you can only have 5 from any one teammate, so that not one teammate can sort of
Dominate.
Yeah.
Fish for everybody.
For the first year, we're going to give everybody freedom, pick your teams. We're only going to take 6 teams for the first year, because the first year we're just kind of going to see how this works, see how it goes. So it's going to be kind of limited spaces. That's going to be 18 anglers, 24 if you include the alternates that can also participate. And one of the reasons to do that is staying under 20 anglers gives us full freedom for lake selection. Yeah. And we don't need permits under 20, so we can kind of do this without having to do the whole necessary lake registrations, permit pulls, and fees. So it gives us more freedom. It allows us to have a little bit more in the payout bucket. Of course, with a team event, there are other challenges, which means the team's going to pay up front, and we have that split up. Actually, we're kind of experimenting with doing this sort of budgeted fees with our membership dues.
I saw that. That's okay.
Yeah, starting in 2026, the membership dues there's going to be a couple payment options. You got to start paying a little early because you need to have your dues paid before the first tournament. I've worked in some options so that instead of paying the full amount up front, you can pay over the series of a couple months. Also new in 2026 for just regular membership dues is you can there's going to be a discount for young anglers, and I put young in quotes. I think young we defined as under 25 or 25 and under. It's one or the other. And that's just to encourage young adults to get involved. And if you're a returning member, the dues are going to be the same as they were last year at $80, but it is going to go up for new members to $100. And so all those options will be available for you to register when memberships go live on the website. And each one will have sort of a payment plan option, spread it out over like 2 or 3 months.
Yeah, and that's just coming from direct feedback from what I've received over the years, because for those anglers that waited, if we even had memberships available in March, and then they were like, okay, man, I gotta I got to pay my membership, and then I entered SIKC 20, and then
Mm-hmm.
I'm right into the first tournament. Those can quickly stack up and be quite a big financial burden. So hopefully you get signed up early. And I will say to everybody listening to this podcast, definitely sign up early, because memberships are going to sell out. I think they're going to sell out probably before March.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to start my campaign now, since we have the younger adult discounts, to look at the senior discounts for the tournament trail. I'm thinking anything over 55 maybe would be
For
nice.
returning members, it's only $5 more. So for young anglers, it's going to be $75 membership dues. For returning members, it's only going to be $80. It's going to be $100 for new members.
It's a nice way to say no. Thanks a lot.
I made it so close.
Yeah.
I'll give you the $5, Jared. It's okay.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah. To finish up on the team trail, I personally am really excited. I've heard a lot of excitement from other members. You do have to be a member of SIK to qualify to sign up for the teams. I think it's a really cool format, and it's just a really unique opportunity. I said I was going to talk a little bit about AOI, and one of the things in that, we're going to do a payout in the team series for TOI, Team of the Year. And so the breakdowns are essentially, we're trying to get to 100% payout. I'm going to preface that by saying that means we're also paying out the trophies. So the trophies are going to come out of those team fees for the series. And we're going to pay out essentially a fifth, almost a fifth to each of the 4 wins in the trail, and then another fifth to the team of the year. I think that amounts that the winners of any individual event essentially get their money back plus some, is the way that payout works out, since there's 6 teams. But for that team of the year, we wanted to make sure that it stayed competitive up until, basically if the one team wins the first 2 events, we don't want people, get discouraged because they're eliminated. So the way we're investigating doing the points for a team event is to sort of have a tight grouping of points if you're in the first 3, and then a bigger gap for the 4, 5, and 6. And what that does, this may not be intuitive, given my background in working with computers and stuff. I actually wrote simulations to simulate this. By having that gap, if you can be consistent in 2nd and 3rd place, it still gives you it allows you to stay in the race up until the last tournament by having the top 3 points. So it'd be something like, and I'm just spitballing here because we haven't formalized this yet, like 100 points for first place, 95 for second, 90 for third, and then it might drop down to like 80 for fourth, and then 75, 70. So that there's like a 10-point gap instead of a 5-point gap between third and fourth. And what that does is it basically incentivizes consistency while still competing at a high level, while not basically letting the person at the top run away with the event by winning the first couple. So it's an interesting experiment.
Yeah, it is going to be interesting.
To kind of work with.
Yeah.
But it's just a way to make sure it's only 4 events, that everybody's still competing when we get into the last 2 events.
Yeah. I'll be honest with you. Every year is like when I fish the last regular scheduled event, I'm like, man, it'd be nice to have something else to do for the next 6 or 8 weeks. So that might be an experiment to kind of scratch that itch when a lot of people are getting off the water. So, well, you guys have been busy.
Yeah.
Been busy in a lot of different ways.
Yeah. And I put this in my notes, and it's something that it'd be one of our, we have a lot of new initiatives in 2026. Something that I want us to think about as we go into 2026 and to be thinking about and brainstorming for 2027. Having this board, one of the things it allows us to do is actually, we're probably going to look at formalizing the organization as like 501c7, which is like a club and organization, a nonprofit club and organization, which gives us some freedom with taxes. It also makes us more attractive when it comes to those sponsorships and donating to the organization, because it becomes sort of a tax write-off. And so one of the things that I want us to think about is what can be our charitable contribution to conservation in the sport of kayak fishing. And so that's something that I think we'll see more directly in 2027, but to think about, can we incorporate youth fishing into there? Can we bring back some of the stuff that I know Josh has done in the past in terms of fundraising tournaments? So doing a tournament for the sake of fundraising, and highlighting some of those organizations that it might be meaningful and impactful and relevant to our group to contribute to, and to consistently think about this organization as something that it's not just community and bass fishing, but it's also about what can the organization do for the community as well. So again, we have a lot of new initiatives. We got this new board, and we're going to be figuring out what that all looks like. But that's definitely going to be part of one of our goals as we look down this trajectory for beyond 2026.
That's awesome. Yeah, I just want to tell you right off the bat, I know what kind of work goes into trying to do something like this on an organizational level. And, Jonathan, thank you for stepping up. Josh, thank you for continuing to be that rock that is really still the face of our kayak club and has built that culture. He's stepping up. Dustin, Brady, Austin, all those folks really stepping up to take some weight off of Josh's shoulders and allowing him to spend more family time. So been some exciting stuff going on.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'll bring it back to where we started, which is to just say, on behalf of the entire organization, and to acknowledge the incredible work that Josh has done over the last several years, a half decade, to grow SIK to where it is today. It's incredible. Thank you.
Absolutely. I second that.
Yeah. Thank you. And I would just tell everybody that's listening to this podcast, just give us a little grace this year. It's going to be a little bumpier as we just transition into this new role, but it's all for the better, I think.
Absolutely.
Yep. Give me that grade.
Yeah. Hey, if you never made any mistakes, that just means you haven't done anything. So we're moving forward and doing things. So that's.
But it makes it easy being able to base all of this on all the hard work that Josh has done over the years. I mean, it really does. Oh
yeah, tournaments have come a long way from my very first tournament direction and back in 2020 to where we are at in 2025 and beyond. But it's baby steps. It's like, hey, I'm gonna try it at this tournament, and oh, that didn't work well, or that worked great. And like I got great feedback on that. Just continue to do that.
Yep. Step forward. So, Jonathan, if someone is watching and they have a question for the board or you personally, what would be the best way for them to reach you?
Easiest way, email me at director@sikfishing.com.
Director@sikfishing.com.
Yep, SIKCFISHING.org.
And that website is now up and running.
So and that website is up and running. Check it out. The memberships, it looks like you can sign up for memberships. When you click it, it will tell you that they're not available yet. They will, and I will try to send out some emails. Once this announcement's live, I'm going to try to, again, with that idea of transparency and communication, we're going to try to send out information via email. I've got all the old members entered into the email accounts, so people will know where that information is, even if they're not plugged into the podcast or plugged into the Facebook page. Check out the new website if you are watching the podcast, and those memberships should be ready to go live on January 1st.
All right. Fantastic. Hey, thanks, guys, for taking some time on a weekday night here. I know you guys are both busy. And even a bigger thank you for all the work you've done to move the club, keep moving the club forward. And we all look forward to having a great year next year in 2026, not only with the individual, but maybe a big team tournament experiment going on. So thanks again, gentlemen.
Yeah. Thanks for having us. Hey, before we wrap up, has anybody been fishing lately?
I have not. How about you?
I went out just Saturday and I put a hurting on some fall fish, which is
nice.
Awesome because I usually don't ever do a great day in the fall, but I put up close to 90 inches on a lake I've never been before. So it was
how exciting. I bet you go back.
Yeah, I
will. I think Jared and I might touch base on a later podcast on this, but I had my bucket list trip all planned, and I went down and I hammered them on Cato Lake, and then I went down to Toledo Bend, and Toledo Bend might have hammered back a little too hard.
Yeah, Yeah, we're gonna have an episode come up real quick on that story. But yeah, you're right. You got hammered back. So all right, good talking to both of you.
You too.
Thank you.
All right.